Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to another story that will take you on a journey of wonder and discovery. Tonight, we venture into the heart of a mysterious forest where a legend whispers through the trees, promising a gift that many seek but few truly understand. This is the story of John, a wanderer like no other, who embarks on a quest to find a mystical lake. A lake that grants its visitors the chance to experience their most cherished dreams. But as John will soon discover, the true magic of this lake lies not in the fulfillment of desires, but in the journey it takes him on, and the lesson that life itself is the greatest dream of all. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into John's adventure. John had always been a man driven by curiosity and the quest for something beyond the ordinary. One day, during a brief rest in a distant village, he overheard a story from an old wanderer that would change his life forever. The old man spoke in a low, mysterious voice, recounting the tale of a mystical lake hidden deep within an ancient forest. According to legend, this lake possessed the ability to grant visitors the power to experience their most cherished dreams. The thought of such a place stirred something deep within John. He had always been a dreamer, someone who longed to live out his deepest desires and fantasies. This was a chance to finally find the answers he had sought his entire life. Without hesitation, he decided to seek the legendary lake. John's journey into the dense forest began at dawn. As he ventured deeper, the sounds of the world around him shifted. The hustle of the outside world faded away, replaced by a chorus of rustling leaves, distant bird calls, and the occasional snap of a twig underfoot. The air grew cooler, laced with the scent of damp earth and pine. Each step took him further into a realm untouched by time, a place where nature held sway. The trees grew taller, their thick canopies forming a protective ceiling, casting the forest floor in a dim, greenish light. The path, barely discernible, twisted and turned, as if the forest itself were trying to protect its secrets. At times, John felt a sense of unease, a whisper in the wind urging him to turn back. But his determination kept him going, the thought of the lake burning in his mind. As he journeyed on, the forest began to change. The air thickened and the ground beneath his feet became slippery, covered with moss and roots that seemed to reach out like grasping hands. Strange creatures flickered in the corners of his vision, shadowy figures that disappeared as quickly as they appeared. John's progress slowed as he struggled against the terrain, his body aching from the constant climb, but his spirit remained unbroken. However, the hardest battle was within. Doubts crept into his mind. Was this journey truly worth it? What if the lake was just a myth? What if he was chasing something that could never be found? These thoughts plagued him, but he kept pushing forward, each step driven by the hope that something extraordinary awaited him. After what seemed like an eternity, John finally emerged from the trees into a clearing. Before him, nestled between the hills, lay the lake. It was more beautiful than he had ever imagined, a vast expanse of water shimmering under the moonlight. The surface of the lake reflected the stars, making it seem as though the sky itself had descended to rest on the earth. The atmosphere was peaceful, almost surreal, as if time had stopped in this sacred space. John approached the water's edge, mesmerized by its beauty. He kneeled down to touch the surface, but before his fingers made contact, a voice echoed from the depths of the lake, deep and resonant. "You have come seeking the gift of dreams," the voice said, gentle but firm. "But dreams are not given freely. To earn them, you must prove your worth." John's heart raced, but he stood tall, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The voice continued, "You must confront the deepest fears that reside within you. Only then can you truly understand the nature of your desires." The lake began to shimmer, and the world around John shifted. The peaceful landscape twisted and morphed into a dark and stormy sea. John found himself standing on a small boat, alone in the vast expanse of water. The winds howled and the waves grew higher, crashing around him. He felt the cold chill of fear creep over him, but he steadied himself. Then the first challenge appeared. A towering figure emerged from the depths of the lake. His father, a man who had always seemed distant and unapproachable. The figure's eyes were filled with disappointment, accusing him of never being good enough, of always falling short. John's chest tightened, his breath shallow, as the weight of his father's judgment pressed down on him. But this time, John did not shrink away. He stared back at the figure, no longer a frightened boy, but a man who had come to understand his own worth. The storm began to subside as he released his fear, accepting that he did not need to seek approval from anyone but himself. The lake rippled again, and a new challenge appeared. His own deepest desire. Before him, the image of the life he had always dreamed of appeared. A successful life, filled with love, happiness, and fulfillment. But the image was fleeting, always just out of reach. John reached out, but the vision dissolved into mist. For a moment, he felt a deep sense of loss, a longing for something he could not have. And then it struck him. It wasn't about achieving these dreams. It was about the journey, the growth, and the lessons learned along the way. Dreams were not fixed destinations. They were evolving, changing with each step. The lake glowed brighter, and the voice spoke again. You have learned that fulfillment lies not in the destination, but in the journey itself. Your dreams are already within you. As the mist cleared, the storm vanished, and the calm lake returned. John felt a wave of peace wash over him, his heart lighter than it had ever been. The voice, now warm and understanding, whispered, "You may now experience your dreams, but remember, they are not the end. They are merely a part of your ever-unfolding path." John stood at the edge of the lake, his reflection now clear in the water. He saw himself not as a traveler searching for answers, but as a man who had already found what he needed within. The journey had changed him. The fears, the desires, the doubts, he had faced them all and emerged stronger. With a final glance at the shimmering lake, John turned away, knowing that the true magic wasn't in the dreams granted by the lake, but in the discovery of his own heart. And so, with a heart at peace, John began his journey back, not as a man in search of something, but as one who had found everything he needed. As John walked away from the mystical lake, he felt a deep sense of serenity settle within him. The forest around him, once dark and foreboding, now seemed welcoming. The trees whispered softly in the wind, as if they were congratulating him on his journey. The path beneath his feet no longer felt treacherous but familiar, each step lighter than the last. He noticed the subtle change in the air, a warmth that hadn't been there before, as if the forest itself had recognized the transformation within him. The colors of the leaves shimmered in hues he hadn't seen before. Vibrant greens, soft browns, and hints of golden yellows that reflected the magic of the lake. The forest felt alive, as if it too was part of the dream he had just experienced, blending reality with the surreal. John was no longer the man who had entered the forest days before. He had discovered something invaluable, the power to embrace the present moment, to find fulfillment not in distant goals, but in the beauty of the journey itself. He had understood that dreams were not to be chased as a final destination, but as guiding stars that illuminated the path along the way. As he walked, the realization slowly settled in. Time had shifted. He couldn't say whether it had been hours or days since he first set foot in the forest, but it felt as though he had been both within and outside of time. The usual rush of the world seemed distant, almost irrelevant. The pressure of societal expectations, the constant pursuit of more, it all felt trivial compared to the wisdom he had gained. With each step, he felt more connected to the forest, and by extension to the world beyond it. His doubts and fears had been shed like a snake's skin, leaving him open to the unknown, to the possibilities that lay ahead. The weight he had carried all his life, the yearning for more, the constant striving had melted away. John felt at peace with himself, as though he had unlocked a deeper understanding of what it meant to be truly alive. The dream of success, love, and fulfillment, which had once felt like distant, unattainable goals, no longer held the same power over him. They were no longer goals to chase, but parts of a larger, unfolding story. A story he was already living. Days passed, and John continued his journey, though now with a new sense of purpose. The world outside the forest awaited him, but his perspective had shifted. He had returned to the village where he had first heard the tale of the dream lake. The familiar sights and sounds no longer felt foreign to him. He walked through the market, greeted by familiar faces, but there was something different now. He saw life with a renewed clarity. He visited the old wanderer who had shared the story with him. The man sat in the same corner of the village square, his face a map of many travels. When he saw John, a knowing smile spread across his face. "Did you find what you were looking for?" the wanderer asked, his voice gentle but filled with wisdom. John smiled, a quiet calm in his eyes. "I did, but I found something more than I expected. I found that the journey itself is the dream." The wanderer nodded, as if this were the answer he had been waiting for all along. "The lake doesn't give you what you desire. It reveals what you already know, deep inside your heart. Only when you understand this can you truly live your dreams." And so John continued his travels. But now every place he visited, every person he met, every challenge he faced felt like part of the dream he had always longed for. The gift of the lake was not a specific dream to be lived, but the ability to live each moment with clarity and purpose. He realized that life itself was the dream. The quiet moments, the connections with others, the victories and failures, all woven together into the intricate tapestry of existence. There was no need for a destination, for all that he needed was already within him. As time passed, John grew into a man who no longer sought external validation or fulfillment from things outside of himself. He lived his life with authenticity, embracing both the light and the dark, the highs and the lows, knowing that each moment was a part of the grand unfolding dream. The mystical lake, though still a beautiful memory, became a symbol, a reminder that fulfillment was not in the pursuit of dreams, but in the awareness that we are already living them, if only we open our hearts to the journey. Years later, as John grew older, he found himself back at the edge of the same forest where his journey had begun. He sat beneath a tree, reflecting on his life and the wisdom he had gained. The forest, though unchanged, seemed even more vibrant now, as if the trees themselves knew of his transformation. John closed his eyes and took a deep breath, the scent of pine and earth filling his lungs. In that moment, he realized that he had lived the dream. He had walked the path, faced his fears, embraced his desires, and learned to let go of the need for a final destination. The gift of the lake had not been in granting him dreams. It had been in teaching him how to live them. As the wind rustled the leaves above, John smiled, knowing that the journey was never truly over. The lake, the forest, and all that had led him here had shown him that the magic of life was not something to be found, but something to be lived in every fleeting moment. And so John's journey continued, not in search of something, but as a celebration of everything he had already discovered within himself. The dream was alive in him, and it always would be. As the seasons changed, John found himself living more in tune with the world around him. The days, no longer rushed or filled with the need for constant achievement, became a gentle rhythm, a dance with the universe, in which he was both both the participant and the observer. Each morning, as the sun rose over the horizon, he would sit by the quiet stream that ran through the forest, his old companion. The soft murmur of the water was a lullaby that calmed his soul, reminding him of the peace he had found within himself. But as the years passed, John began to sense that his journey was reaching its final chapter. He had experienced all that he could within the forest and the world beyond. His heart, though content, felt a pull, an understanding that there was something yet to be discovered, something he had not fully embraced. The forest, which had been his home for so long, seemed to speak to him in the soft rustling of the leaves, a voice only he could hear. One evening, as he stood at the edge of the dream lake once again, the still waters reflecting the stars as they had all those years ago, John knew it was time. The lake, though unchanged in its beauty, now seemed to whisper to him in a way that went beyond words. The gift it had given him, the ability to live his dreams, had been enough. But there was one final lesson, one final step in the journey he had yet to fully understand. With a deep, steady breath, John stepped forward into the cool waters of the lake. The sensation was familiar, yet this time, there was a sense of surrender. The water, which had once seemed like a separate entity, now felt like an extension of himself, as if the lake itself was a mirror of his soul. He closed his eyes, allowing the water to rise around him, enveloping him in its calm embrace. The same voice, ancient and knowing, spoke once more. "You have lived your dreams, John, but now you must learn the greatest truth of all." John's heart beat steadily as he listened, the weight of the words settling within him. He had lived the dreams of success, love, and peace. He had traveled far and learned much. But now there was something deeper to understand. The voice continued, "True fulfillment lies not in the pursuit of dreams, but in the act of letting them go." The journey was never about reaching a destination. It was about becoming one with the flow of life itself. The water around him began to shimmer, and for the first time, John understood. Dreams, like the water, flowed continuously. They were not static, nor were they meant to be grasped and held forever. They were meant to evolve, to change with time, just as he had. John felt a sense of release, a letting go of all the expectations and desires that had once defined his journey. He had spent his life chasing dreams, but now he realized that the true gift of the lake was not to fulfill his wishes, but to teach him that life itself was the greatest dream of all. As the night sky stretched out before him, filled with countless stars, John felt a sense of oneness with the universe. The forest, the lake, the stars, all were interconnected, a vast, intricate web of existence. The journey had never been about reaching the lake. It had always been about understanding the connection between all things, including himself. He had spent so long searching for meaning, but now he knew that the meaning was not in the destination, but in the experience of living each moment fully. John slowly stepped back from the water, his heart calm and full. The lake, now silent and still, seemed to shimmer with a soft glow, as if in recognition of his newfound understanding. He turned away, the knowledge that he had already discovered everything he needed, filling him with peace. As he walked back into the forest, the trees whispered their approval. The path was no longer a road of uncertainty. It was simply the next step in an endless journey, one that would continue for as long as he lived. In the distance, the village called to him, a place where his story had begun and where it would continue to unfold. But now, John carried within him a profound truth. The greatest dreams were not those that were realized, but those that were experienced along the way. Years later, when John had grown old and the village no longer recognized the wanderer who had once left in search of the lake, his story lived on. The legend of the dream lake remained, passed down from one traveler to the next. But those who heard it no longer sought it out for the sake of their desires. Instead, they understood the deeper meaning of the tale, that life itself, in all its fleeting moments, was the dream worth living. John's name became a quiet legend, not because of the dreams he had once sought, but because of the wisdom he had gained in learning to let go of them. His story was not one of conquest, but one of surrender. A surrender to the flow of life, to the understanding that true fulfillment comes not from what we gain, but from what we let go. And so the dream lake remained, its shimmering waters waiting for those who would seek it, not for what they could take from it, but for the lessons it could teach them about the endless, ever-evolving journey of life. In the end, John's greatest dream was not one of distant stars or unreachable desires. It was the dream of living fully, of embracing each moment as it came, and of knowing that the journey itself was the true gift. As the years passed, the legend of John, the man who had discovered the true meaning of dreams, spread far and wide. Travelers from all corners of the world came to hear his story. They sought the dream lake just as John once had, driven by the hope that they could discover the magic he had found. But when they arrived at the lake, something extraordinary happened. Instead of finding the answers they expected, they encountered the same silence and tranquility that John had once found. The lake did not offer them anything tangible, nor did it grant their wishes. It simply reflected their own hearts, their own dreams, and their own journey. Those who came to the lake left not with the gift of fulfilled desires, but with a deeper understanding. They realized that the path to the lake, the journey itself, was where the real magic lay. Like John, they discovered that true fulfillment was not found in reaching a destination or obtaining something external, but in embracing the present moment and the experiences that came with it. The lake, with its serene and reflective waters, became a symbol not of dreams to be captured, but of the inner peace that comes from letting go of expectations and accepting life as it unfolds. The travelers who once believed they had to chase their dreams began to see them in a new light. They no longer sought to control the course of their lives. Instead, they learned to flow with it, just as the lake's waters flowed endlessly toward the horizon. The lake became a place of reflection, a reminder that all dreams, whether realized or not, were part of the greater tapestry of existence, woven together by time, experiences, and choices. As John aged and the days grew shorter, he found himself walking once more along the familiar paths of the forest. The trees, now towering and wise with age, whispered their eternal secrets, and the air was thick with the scent of earth and pine. John no longer sought answers or destinations. Instead, he walked simply for the joy of walking, for the peace it brought him, for the knowledge that he had learned to be present in each moment. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow across the landscape, John sat by the dream lake one last time. The water, still and shimmering, reflected the vastness of the sky above. For a moment, everything seemed suspended in time. The world stood still, as if waiting for something, waiting for the last piece of the puzzle to fall into place. And then it came to him. The lake had granted him his final gift, the understanding that the journey never truly ends. As long as he lived, he would continue to dream. Dreams not of the past or the future, but of the present. The dream was not something to be achieved or held on to. It was the experience of life itself, the moments that connected him to everything around him. In that realization, he found peace. John closed his eyes, the sound of the water lapping gently at the shore filling his ears. The forest around him seemed to breathe as if it too was a part of him. He was no longer just a traveler seeking something outside himself. He was a part of the dream, a part of the eternal cycle of life love, and growth. As the years went by, John's physical form grew frail, and eventually he left the world of the living. But his legacy lived on, not in the stories people told about him, but in the way he had touched their hearts. Those who had encountered him, those who had listened to his words and followed his path, carried his message forward, that the dream of life is not something to be chased or conquered. It is something to be experienced, to be lived fully in each passing moment. The Dream Lake, now more a legend than a place, continued to draw seekers from far and wide. They came to experience the magic of the lake, but soon realized that the magic was not in the lake itself. It was in them. It was in their willingness to let go of their expectations, to surrender to the flow of life, and to embrace the beauty of the journey, no matter how winding or uncertain it may be. The lake itself had become a symbol of John's journey, a reflection of the endless cycle of life and dreams, of the moments that shape us and the lessons that unfold with time. It remained a place where those who sought peace could find it, not by grasping at fleeting desires, but by allowing themselves to be still, to be present, and to remember that every step, no matter how small, was part of the grand dream of existence. And so the journey continued, not just for those who came to the lake, but for all who lived with the understanding that the dream was always within reach, alive in every breath, every thought, every moment shared with the world. The story of John, the traveler who had learned to live his dreams, was woven into the fabric of the earth itself, an eternal reminder that the greatest gift is not in the dreams we achieve, but in the lives we lead. The journey was and always would be the dream itself. As John's journey came to an end, he discovered something far more valuable than the dreams he once sought. The true gift was not in reaching the lake, but in the lessons learned along the way. The Dream Lake, once a place of longing, now symbolized the beauty of living fully in each moment. John's story reminds us that fulfillment isn't found in chasing dreams, but in embracing the present. So, as you lay down to rest tonight, remember that the greatest dream lies not in the future, but in the moments you experience right now. Sweet dreams and good night.